Hey, welcome back to the MN Scorefeed Blitz. I'm Joel. That is the former Minnesota Viking linebacker Chad Greenway on the other end of the phone line. Good day, sir.
Hey, good day. How's it going, Joel?
Doing very well, and we're going to talk a whole bunch of football here in this program. We're going to start talking about the Purple, who are 3-1 for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, for me, it might be a little bit of a shaky 3-1 start, but it's still 3-1, and we'll take it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the season can best be described as maybe lucky. I don't know if that's the right word, but the fact that we've gotten 2 wins that I would consider somewhat lucky is good. And I say that not tongue in cheek. I say that in real life. That's how the NFL works. These games are so tight. There's so much parity. Is you have to have a little luck. You have to have a double doink. You have to have a Lions coach that maybe makes the wrong decision on 4th and 1 at the end of the game. I mean, you have to have some of these things go your way to give yourself a chance in the back end, and that's where I feel like, in a very, very positive way, that's what I feel like is going on.
Well, and you just going back to last year, and I don't have the exact stat in front of me, but I thought it was something like 5 or 6 of our losses were within 1 score, and it seemed like last year all those games were going against us, and at least here in the first 4, some of those games are going for us now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. I have gone through seasons. If you kind of end around that 8-8 marker, when I was playing 9-7, when you're playing 16 games, it was always like, how do you win those 2 or 3 games? By a point or 2 here or there, by 1 play here or there, to get yourself in the playoffs. And that's how thin the margin of error can be, and sometimes in these teams. And we've seen teams that have limped into the playoffs and gotten hot at the right time and gone and really created some major damage in the playoffs. So I think in the NFL, it's a 1-game season all the time, and I think just get yourself into the dance. So, I've been a part of many of those teams, and I think when you get those things, a drop pass from the receiver in Green Bay to completely shift the momentum of that game in week 1, and then we go kind of pound on them, and then then we get the win against Detroit and the win this weekend in New Orleans or in London against New Orleans. Like, these wins are wins that are these are solid wins, and I don't think any Vikings fan would look at our team and say we're playing our best football. And I don't think we are, but we're 3-1, and that's all that matters.
Well, and speaking of not playing your best football, I mean, after 4 weeks, I mean, Dalvin Cook has been just okay. I mean, he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been the Dalvin we know. Is it time to raise an eyebrow, or is it still too early on that one?
Man, that's the talker, right? Is it time to raise an eyebrow? I don't know. I hope not. I hope that it's not. We can't argue that have an argument that it's ability. We know he can play, but what is it schematically that we're doing with this new staff that is not giving him the touches or the yardage that we need to get him to? And again, there's multiple ways, as a Swiss Army knife to win in this league. And maybe we just haven't needed him yet. The positions of the games haven't warranted for a longer chance to stay with your running game and really get the ball in his hands. My thing is just we need to get him as many touches as possible. Can we get him on the backfield to catch more footballs? Can we hand him off? Can we get him screens? I think that's the thing that I ask myself. And it's got to be a little bit about Dalvin. Obviously he was banged up, a little bit of health issues, but also is it scheme? And are we getting him the ball in the right spots?
And maybe this is the week. You got the Chicago Bears here, and I know going in the last few years, even going back to the Adrian Peterson days, I mean, the running game against the Bears has always played kind of prominent. Now, granted, that was the Mike Zimmer years, but still, is this the week against the Bears that Dalvin can get going?
Man, I hope so. I think they have a pretty stout defense, and their offense has seen some struggles. So I think it's going to be a tale of two sides of the football. Can our running game get going against the stout defense? It's played pretty well at times, and it certainly has some blue blood players, no doubt. Can we get that running game going? Can Kirk find his spot? Can we? I think Kirk has been protected, but he's been rushed, and we like Kirk to sit back there and be able to survey and hit his spots. Defensively, we got to find a way to stop the run. I mean, and we're going to get tested this week as much as we are any week, and we have to find the ability to be consistent in the run game and make team one-dimensional. And I don't think we've proven to be able to do that yet.
Speaking of the quarterback, and maybe I'm just putting too much into this, but it seems like there's been a few more drops from receivers and tight ends this first 4 games. Is that more of a quarterback thing? Is that a receiver thing? Or am I just kind of imagining things a little bit here?
Well, every drop is kind of it lives in its own world. It's not always on one or always in the other. But some of the drops we've seen, I think, has been receiver based. I think it's really been, can Kirk throw a better ball? He's going to tell you can always throw a better ball. But a lot of these drops that I've seen have come from receivers that have a chance to catch a ball and make a play, even if it's not an easy catch, but to make a play. And that's how you separate yourself in this league is when you get that opportunity, you take it. And I think you've seen some guys that haven't quite gotten over the hump on that, and we need to find those guys to make those plays. And it's got to be against divisional opponents like we're going to see this weekend. We have to, we know this game against the Bears will be tight. It's just what happens in the division. But we got to find a way to win at home and secure that thing. And if you can do that, man, you'll feel good.
We're going to talk more football in our next segment. We're going over to college side of football. We'll do that next on the MN Scorefeed Blitz. Back on the MN Scorefeed Blitz here on KDUZ. I'm Joel. That is Chad, and we're going to keep the football conversation going. We're going to talk about the college football ranks, the Big Ten West. And boy, Chad, everybody said this was the year for the Gophers, and maybe it still is. But that loss last week to Purdue doesn't make me any more confident.
Yeah, I think the part that shocked you a little bit was the home game, right? You have a hard time losing that game to Purdue, and I don't think it's a great Purdue team. But that's a Purdue team that gives everybody fits. I mean, my Hawkeyes have problems with them every year. And, what I'm looking at is this Illinois team. This Illinois team is looking to me like the team that might be a real problem. If they can go into Iowa City this weekend and win, then we're going to know they're for real after getting a big win in Wisconsin. So the Gophers, as much excitement surrounded that team, we didn't really know what Michigan State had after that win. You get Purdue coming home, and that's a game you just have to stamp and say, we're going to find a way to win this football game. They could not get it done. They couldn't get over the hump. Even when they brought it back and got it tight, couldn't get over the top on it. And again, they're in a position, though, right, where anything can still happen. They're in a great spot. They got to kind of find their groove here mid-season as we move into it.
This year, maybe more than others. Last year, it might have been a little bit up for grabs, but you kind of had an idea that Wisconsin and Iowa and the regulars are going to be there in the end. This year, it seems like as you mentioned, Illinois got a chance. I think the Gophers got a chance. Iowa still got a chance, and Wisconsin is still Wisconsin. It seems up for grabs this year.
Well, at least in the West. I think we can secure the East as Michigan and Ohio State territory, and we just don't know how that's going to shake out. Ohio State looks unbeatable at this point. But we'll see. So it may be just a race to get to Indy and see what happens. But in the West, I think it's absolutely wide open. I think all the teams you named are in it, and anybody can come up to the top, and it might be a 5-3 team. It might be ugly. And the West has been ugly in the past, and I think last year the Hawkeyes secured theirs by the Gophers beating Wisconsin. So, it was the very end of how that went down. So, the West is up for grabs. I don't think there's an elite team in the West, to be honest with you, as I watch it. I think the Gophers have the best shot along with Illinois. So we'll see what happens here as we shake it out.
And for the Gophers, if they can keep Mohamed Ibrahim healthy, that seems like their best chance, because last week when they didn't have him against Purdue, they were a completely different team, and they weren't a championship team last week.
Well, he's the straw that drinks, or straw that mixes the drink. Sorry, I'm getting my euphemism out here. He is such a good player. He's such a high-level player. He's built for Big Ten football. He's built for the end of the season. This guy is how you draw it up in Big Ten running back football. And if you don't have him, your team is completely different. And you saw that, and I think you see the running game and how effective it is when they have it. And I don't care who you're playing. If you have that guy running the football, you're going to have a good chance.
Got to give a little bit of love to the other Division I team in Minnesota, St. Thomas. I know they're 3-1 to start the season. I believe it's year 2, I think, for them here. So that's not an easy thing to continue that jump to Division I.
No, you have a little bit of a grind session to get there, and I do think though the recruiting base is big enough in the metro area, and they're going to be able to go out and get some kids, and I think that program is going to get to relevancy pretty quickly. You can see I haven't seen their schedule. I don't know who they're playing and how that 3-1 looks, but when they move up and start playing the big dogs, like they're going to have some players that can hang, and that's just going to come down to recruiting and getting kids to go there and want to be there. And I see it with the girls basketball side and how they're recruiting kids, and I think it shows you there's a lot of talent, a huge depth of talent here in state. Can St. Thomas find a way to keep those kids, those fringe players that maybe aren't Power 5 kids here, and go win with them. I think they're going to find a way to do it.
You mentioned recruiting. I'll wrap up talking about that because it does seem, in the if the Gophers have been able to struggle, I'll say recruiting in state. I mean, Mankato's always been a good program. North Dakota State up north has been a good program. St. Thomas has been a good. You can go all around to these Division II kind of schools around Minnesota, and they're finding recruits. So it is kind of a nice place to get college athletes here in Minnesota.
Oh, absolutely. You look is it the MIAC? Is that conference that's so good? I mean, it's what you see just a lot of D3 and really good D2 teams with Minnesota State. Now you see St. Thomas jumping up, and I do think that there's a lot of kids that was given the opportunity to go to a school like St. Thomas are going to absolutely thrive in that environment. And they're going to be able to step up to the plate and play big time football. What's going to happen to Minnesota that first time St. Thomas plays the Gophers? Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen down the road. And if St. Thomas gets to the point where they can be a relevant football team and start competing, now you have a massive crosstown rivalry. You can dang near hit a golf ball between those two campuses. It'd be pretty crazy.
Sounds good, Chad. Hey, thanks for coming on, and we'll keep watching the app as it's getting down to playoff time here.
Yeah, the Scorefeed app is absolutely buzzing right now. Mid-season, 5 games in, you can go on there and look at the polls, the rankings, the standings in the section. Obviously, how you look across your class. A lot of great area teams that are doing very, very well with Dilworth and Hutch and all these teams that are sitting at the top of the polls and doing great. So go download the app. It's free. Become a fan. Score. We now have 50% of our games in Minnesota that are being live scored by fans. So people are getting it. They're loving it. So jump on board.
That's the MN Scorefeed app. He's Chad Greenway. This is the MN Scorefeed Blitz on KDUZ.